Welcome to the Right Podcast, Georgia Harper.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So good to be here.
I am super excited to talk to you today. Georgia wrote the book What I Would Do to You, which is a crime fiction novel that came out last year, and it won you the best debut book at the 2025 Davitt Awards.
Thank
Congratulations.
you so much. It was such an exciting little win.
I did. That's a huge award to win.
Thank
But
you.
I would love to hear more about you because you have quite the background.
Yeah, I do. I've done a few different things in my career, and certainly writing fiction has only been a very recent addition. So I am a psychologist by trade, and I've been a psychologist now for more than 20 years. And in that particular profession, I've done a whole range of different things. And I guess the thing that lends itself to informing my crime writing is that I worked in prisons and the corrective services system and also the forensic mental health system. So I had a lot of background in that particular area. I don't work in those areas anymore, but I also moved over and spent a period of time as the Senior Inspector of Prosecutions for RSPCA, which was the other sort of very interesting, quite different part of my career. Yeah.
Wow, that must have been quite a heavy career to kind of come from.
Yeah, I know. Somebody asked me recently why I always choose these really heavy roles. And I'm like, I honestly, I don't know. I had to do some reflecting after that. And I thought, I don't know what draws me to these things. I really don't know. And yes, I do think over time, cumulatively, there has been a lot of heaviness. And it's sometimes nice to try and step out of that for a little bit because your world, it's very easy for your world to become quite dark and sort of, the human mind, we tend to focus on the negative when it's in front of us and it can kind of engulf you a little bit. So it's good to be able to take a step out of that sometimes and have a breather from it.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us about your book. Did that kind of come from you had all this knowledge and you wanted to put it in, or how did that go?
Not exactly. So how it happened was in 2020, I was working as a psychologist, not in prisons, and I was working on the Darling Downs, but I'm from Brisbane originally. And COVID had hit, and I had a contract that was finishing, and it was early days of COVID. So it was kind of ramping up, and we didn't really know what was going to happen. And very quickly, I decided to move back to Brisbane to be closer to my family. And I took a job back in a prison without really giving it a great deal of thought. And I'd been out of working in that environment for a number of years. And I walked into the prison on my first day and I put my uniform back on. And I looked at a list of names up on the wall of a bunch of guys prisoners I used to work with. And I was like, he's back. Oh, he's here. And I looked at myself in my uniform in the mirror while I was there, and I just had this really strong sense that that part of my life was over and this just overwhelming desire to leave. And I did. And it was, it was in Brisbane. I left, I cried as I left the prison gates. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I quit my job on my first day? And I'm a little bit prone to impulsive decision making. And I kind of walked around the streets and it was like dark and it was winter. And it sounds very dramatic, but it was Brisbane winter. So it really wasn't that cold. But I was like, what do I do? Do I quit my job? And I was having this moment and I'd had a few years of things. And I was like, and this thing happened that has never happened to me before. And it was like this voice almost outside of me spoke to me. And I wrote down what it said. And it said, this voice is loud for a reason. Listen to it, follow it. It will lead you good places. Be brave. And I was like, what? But I did. I went and I emailed in my resignation that night. And then I woke up to the same voice. And it was, you've always wanted to write a book before you die. Get up and start now. And I was like, okay then. And I did. And I did. And so within 2 or 3 weeks, I had a new job back on the Darling Downs. I returned, I was commuting 2 hours a day to work. I was living somewhere else on the Darling Downs, and I would get up at like 4 a.m. and I'd write before work. And I did that for about a year. And then I edited for about a year, but I never even looked up like, how do you write a book? What do you do? Just the story kind of came to me and I wrote it down in my car. I'd sit outside work. Anyway, I got to the end of it and I was like, okay, now what do I do? And I had this memory from movies that people have literary agents. I'm like, I think I need a literary agent. So I Googled Literary Agents Australia and Curtis Brown came up. And I didn't know that that was the world's biggest literary agency. I didn't know who anyone was, but I just saw that they had like submission dates, right? And so I waited for like the time and the exact date and time that felt right during one of the submission periods. And I put it in, and I didn't know then that that is called the slush pile, where like a gazillion manuscripts go. And, you get the polite but firm, email. I think it's, kind of like, don't call us ever. In the unlikely event that you ever will hear from us about this, it would be, they say, typically 2 to 6 weeks post submission, and that they take a tiny handful of authors every year. So I went about my life, and then I was on my lunch break exactly 2 weeks to the day after submission. I opened my inbox and there was an email from an agent called Benjamin Paz at Curtis Brown, and he was like, oh, we really liked your submission. Can you send us a more detailed synopsis outlining all the key story beats? And so I went to Google and I'm like, what is a story beat? And I wrote, oh, it's terrible. I think I'm not meant to say this. But then I did that and sent it off. And then they asked for my full manuscript. And then they asked to meet with me. And they signed me. And it was really interesting because during this process, like while I was writing the book, I pretty much didn't read any fiction. I'd stopped while I was writing. And the first book that I read was during this process of chatting to Benjamin Paz at Curtis Brown. A psychologist friend of mine lent me a book called Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, by Benjamin Stevenson. And as I was talking to Benjamin Paz at Curtis Brown, I'm like starting to think maybe he's written a book. So I wrote to him, I said, have you written something? He's like, oh yeah, it's a really poorly kept industry secret. I'm Benjamin Stevenson. My current book is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. So I was literally reading his book as he was reading my manuscript. So he signed me, and he was the first human to ever read a word of my manuscript or know what it was about. So not a living soul had seen it before I chucked it on the slush pile. So that's kind of how
I
part of
love
it came to
that
be.
so much. And when you were saying the voices came to you, like I'm a
Yeah.
very woo-woo person, and I got goosebumps. That was, oh my God.
See, I'm not a woo-woo person. I'm like, show me the science. Show me, let me read 5 journal articles on that. And, and so I'm not like that. So yeah, it's been a really interesting experience to like connect with that part of myself. And now that voice is just like, just keep going, just keep going. That's what it says now, kind of. Yeah.
I love that so much. And
Yeah.
I know, yeah, with agents, there's not many agents in Australia to start with. And yeah, to get a one with them is
Yeah.
incredible. Again,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I was extremely fortunate in that part of the journey. It also meant that it was, quite the learning about the industry was quite eye-opening because I knew nothing, and then suddenly I was in the thick of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I know there will be a lot of authors listening to this going, no, it can't be that easy. Why isn't it
Well,
that easy?
no, and I promise you, after that, it hasn't been that easy. Like it's been difficult for me in other ways. And I think also I feel like I need to say this. uh, the years leading up to that for me were I was in an exceptionally difficult part of my life. And those years were extremely hard for me in a number of other ways. And it kind of felt like it was just this tiny little reward from the universe, like this tiny little encouragement. So in many, many ways, it felt like a nice little thing. And even though that part did thankfully all fall into place, I think I was probably in the background challenged and struggling in a number of other ways. So it was like not this kind of perfect, just like I woke up one morning and it all, but I do feel extremely grateful and fortunate that that part happened.
Yeah.
That,
I
yeah.
mean, it's super inspiring. And just the fact that it did happen for you just certainly shines the light that it is possible that people
Yeah.
who, apply and submit to slush piles, they don't always get chosen, but sometimes they will. And
Absolutely.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
the timing.
Yeah.
I know I get submissions all the time, and I'm very, very sparse on who I publish these days.
Mm,
Um, but it's a lot
yeah.
about
And I've been doing it.
timing and the market being right. And all right,
Yes,
we've just gone
that's the
very
thing. I think
slow
there's
for a
so many,
second.
we
Hang
can
on, it's
feel,
just
we can kind of oh, sorry.
no, no, you're right. I'm
There
just
was a
waiting for it
lag
to
there,
get
Sarah.
fast and catch up. Just give it 2 seconds. So I did this. Yeah, still lagging. Oh, come on. Come on. Come on, crappy internet. Okay. Just give it a sec. Hang on, it does this. Okay. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
It's about a 6 second
Good.
lag. So
You can
okay.
edit that.
We'll keep going and
Okay.
yeah, yeah, I will. I'll definitely edit it. I think we're good. Okay. Once my face catches up with my mouth, that's when I
Then
know
we'll be
we're
good.
good.
Yeah. You're looking, it's pretty good now, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've got it back. Oh, I hate when
Oh,
that
amazing.
happens. I was doing a solo the other day and like I just couldn't use any of the videos. I'm like, that sucks.
Ah,
All right. So where can we go back to on that? Okay, we'll just jump into a new bit. Agent, publisher. Okay. So once you got your agent, did they get you to do a lot of rewrites and edits?
no, I was very fortunate. No, so it all happened quite quickly from there. So I think there was one smallish thing that I changed, but no, not much work at all. So it pretty much, and I think honestly, if I could give some advice to people, and not obviously coming from a background where I know anything technical about writing, I think the one thing that I did do was I probably spent almost longer editing than I spent writing in the first place. And I made sure that that thing was as tight as I could get it, that it was I mean, I know that errors aren't the be all and end all, but I made it as clean as I could possibly make it. And I think that probably is something that maybe helped it along the way. So no, there wasn't a great deal of changes, and it went out. So it went out to bids very quickly after Curtis Brown signed me, and about a week before the bids were due to close, Benjamin, my agent now at Curtis Brown is Tara Wynn. Benjamin's now gone off to do full-time kind of author things, but Benjamin had said to me that Meredith Kerno at Penguin Random House wanted to meet with me. And again, I went and Googled and I'm like, oh, she's like Julia Gillard's publisher. And she's got all of these literary, incredible authors. And then I was like, oh, I was scared. But we met, and Meredith is absolutely amazing. And she is just so talented at what she does and incredible to work with. Anyway, so we met, and then on the day of closing of bids, Penguin came in and acquired the book. And so Meredith has been my publisher since then. And yeah, she's amazing. So,
Oh, that's, yeah, I'm so inspired. I love that story so much.
oh,
All right, so tell us about the book, What I Would Do to You. Give us a bit of a
yeah.
blurb.
Yeah. Okay. So the genre is kind of crime spec fiction crossover. It's a bit hard to genre actually. So set in a near future Australia, there's been a rise in conservative government, and to the point that they have brought back capital punishment, which um, you know hopefully is unimaginable, but we never know. So they brought back capital punishment, but they have taken it to a real extreme of a real eye for an eye extreme, where for deceased victims, the family has an opportunity to exact whatever they think is justice or revenge on the perpetrator. So they have 24 hours to go into the perpetrator's cell and do whatever they want. No cameras, no microphones, whatever they feel is justice, but they do not have to. They can have the person's sentence commuted to life in prison. So it's either death penalty via the victim's family or life imprisonment. So the story is told through the family, the Heathwood family, who are the first family to go through this new trial of the criminal justice system, and they are supported by a court-appointed psychologist who is going to provide support while they make this terrible decision about what they want to do. And so each family member has kind of secrets from each other, and she sees them individually. So she sort of narrates their stories. And one of the family members is Hannah. So Hannah's the little girl the family has lost a little girl, Lucy. So she's murdered in a pretty horrible way in bushland adjoining her family's property. So we know from the outset who the perpetrator is. There's never any doubt about his guilt. And I kind of did that deliberately. We're not questioning whether he's guilty or not. We know he's done it. Her older sister, Hannah, is 18 at the time of the story. Lucy's been dead for a few years. The trial is concluded, and this is the sentence. But the law is that because Hannah was not 18 at the time of the murder, she is not eligible to participate in the execution. However, she narrates the other part of the story. So Octavia is the psychologist. She tells the family stories. And then we have Hannah, who also narrates her own story. And she's got her own things going on. And yeah, that's how it kind of plays out.
I love that. And so you've got some of your experience that you can bring to the story?
Yeah, yeah. So I think, I mean, obviously it's in a wildly different world, and one that I always say to people, I personally do not support capital punishment or any type of violent retribution. But I think when I wrote it, I thought it was a world that to me seemed completely unimaginable. However, I have readers say to me all the time, like, I could so see this happening. And God, I really hope that we don't ever see something like that happen. But yeah, like it's obviously informed by, I think when I wrote the characters and the psychologist character, who people often think is me, but I tried to make her as different from me as I could. So I don't sort of see that. But I guess I obviously drew from my career experiences in terms of the crime stuff. I also drew from my knowledge, but it is not based on any particular individual. It's just kind of like a mishmash of commonalities that sometimes happen in those sorts of crimes. And, I think as well, the point is that for me, as a science evidence-based person, the research is strong that intervention, for the large majority of prisoners in Queensland, they will go to prison, they'll be released at some point, and, effective intervention and treatment is really important for some of that population in reducing risk of reoffending. However, my personal belief is that there is a small minority of people who do horrific things that we're never going to be able to be fully confident that when they come back out on the street, that some other horrific thing is not going to happen to another individual. And I think we've seen a number of those sorts of high profile crimes happen in Australia. Do I think that the solution to that is capital punishment? Absolutely not. Not me personally. But, you see kind of the rage of some of the victim survivors and the victims' families around the criminal justice system, and kind of feeling re-traumatized by those experiences and not feeling like justice has been served sometimes. So it was just kind of an exploration of all of that. I don't have any answers for any of it, but it was just kind of taking my consciousness around a lot of that and putting it on the page. And also there's a lot of environmental themes. So I'm thinking forward to, it's set in 2039. I wrote it before AI was, a thing that was taking off. So I wasn't really thinking about the impacts of AI in the book, but I was certainly projecting forward in terms of climate change and what our future, so it should be a recognizable future, hopefully, but climate issues and animal welfare issues also feature in there.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. That's yeah, did you have to do a lot of research or you already
I
kind of
didn't
could
do
go?
a great deal. Like I really, I'm finding over time that I am starting to do a bit more research, but honestly, I'm such a research-based person in real life that one of the joys of writing for me has been freeing myself from that. However, as I go on, I'm starting to realize that like research probably is a part, a part
Yeah.
of it. But no, I didn't do an enormous amount of research. No.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I love that premise. I love the story. storyline. I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. I've really, yeah, well done. I'm not
Thank
surprised at all
you.
that
Thank
it
you. It's
was.
an intense one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. So you do have another book coming out in just a few
I
months,
do.
with Penguin Random House again. Is it a sequel or anything like
No,
that?
completely unrelated. So this one is a bit of a it's a little bit novel, I think, in some ways as well. So the book is called Dove. It's set, and Dove is the protagonist in the book. That's her name. So it's a psychological thriller set in the Sunshine Coast hinterland in 1993. In a small rural town on the tourist route. So it's an imaginary town.
So it's
Not
Mulaney, but imaginary.
It's not Malay. It's not Malay. Actually, genuinely is an imaginary town. Like it's actually not based on any specific town in the hinterland. So it actually is imaginary. But what I've done is so as a backstep, and I'll tell you, this is real life. So while I was editing What I Would Do to You, I was living in a little country town myself, and I had a property that had a massive, like, colorbond fence line. So it was like 70 meters long. And it was on sort of the area of this little town, but people would pass through. And somebody in town did something that I did not find. I was quite upset and angry about. A man had done something, and I was pretty upset. And it was at a time where, I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was a social media question going around, which was asking what women would do if there were, or what people would do if there were no men for a day. So, like, what would you do? Did you ever see that? At,
No.
no, yeah. So it went viral. So people, thousands of people across the world, like women were saying, like, I'd go running in the dark without my headphones on, or like I'd sleep with my windows open and, without a security screen, just all the most basic stuff that makes you, like, I'd go out and pass out on a bench in a park after my night out. Like, and it was similar themes, and it was wild at one point. So I had been reading all of these answers. This thing happened to me, and I was really affronted. And I told my friends and family I was going to paint that question on my wall, on my front fence of my property. I'm like, I'm going out. I'm going to put a question that asks, what would we do if there were no men for a day? I think it's a really thought-provoking question. And in my world, the men just disappear, like, to some happy place for 24 hours and come back. And it's a social experiment. Anyway, what made me even more mad then was that my friends and family were like, Georgia, no, that's not safe for you to do that. Like, something's going to happen to you if you put that on a thing on your front fence. And I'm like, why? I'm not promoting, and it made me even more angry that I actually wouldn't be allowed, like that, well, I'd be allowed, but the people genuinely thought my safety could be at risk. So anyway, I went about my merry life and got mad about 50 million other things. But when it came time to write this second book, I'm like, I know, Dove can put the question on her front fence. So that's what she does.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
she has a little tiny little permaculture property that she manages by herself. And she has like a cutesy little farmy life. She's in her 30s. She's single. She doesn't sort of have any, she has a few visitors over, but she doesn't have anyone of long-term interest. And she's just living this life with her animals, and it's a little bit more romantic than my small town lugging hay bales and stuff life. But she's doing that. And something happens, not what happened in my story, but something completely different. And she gets really mad and writes this on her front fence, and women start coming and putting their answers on there. And then things start happening, like a threat appears amongst the answers, and things happen on her property. And the men in town are getting really unsettled by the women, who are their wives, are going and writing the responses, and they're getting a bit defensive, and it's sort of bringing up conversations. And in the background, Dove has a bit of a secret liaison going on, and they're intertwining. And there's also a missing persons case, an unsolved missing persons case in the background. So yeah, it's taking a
That
current,
sounds,
yeah.
yeah, that sounds intriguing. I absolutely cannot wait to read that and see what happens. Oh my gosh, I think there might be another Davitt Award winner.
God, yeah. I don't know. I think we can't control those things. And I think it's one of those like I try, even though I'm really honored to receive that, I also take it with a grain of salt in the sense that there are so many amazing books out there and you just don't know what will tickle someone's fancy at any given time for any particular reason. So yeah. There's books are so individual, they're so personal, aren't they, in terms of what people's taste is and what they'll enjoy.
Absolutely, yes, that's for sure. So, what I would do for you, what I would do to you, is available ebook, paperback, and audio, which
Mhm.
is fantastic for our audiobook people like me. Is it just available in Australia or is it available overseas as well?
It's just available in Australia at the moment, for now. Yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe one day in the
Awesome. Oh,
yeah.
brilliant. And you are going to be with us at the Sunshine Coast Fiction Festival, which is happening very, very soon,
I
which is
can't
exciting.
wait. The program looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. So, the bookseller that we have, Forever Fables, are stocking your book. So, anyone listening or watching, you can find Georgia both days over at Forever Fables table, which will be right next to Candace Fox. So, that should
We'll
be
be locked in
super
conversation. You can come and tap us on the shoulder and we'll chat to you
You need
instead.
to stop talking about crime writing and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
talk to us.
yeah.
That'll be fantastic. I have been so inspired talking to you today. I'm so thrilled that you had time to come and talk to us on the Right podcast. Thank you so much for that, Georgia.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.